welcome back to Business 150, Introduction to Management. We are still in module number 1, but now we're on lecture video number 7. As you can see from this title slide, we're looking at the topic of management skills. What kind of skills do you need in order to be an efficient and successful manager? And in this video, when you finish it up, you should be able to identify fundamental skills that managers need to be successful. We'll talk about those, as well as consider areas where you need to develop and you have opportunities to grow along this managerial skill base. Every single one of us can always get better. We can always improve. No matter how long a manager has been about the business of management, she or he can always find areas where they can improve. And that's one of the wonderful things about management as well as life, is that there are always opportunities to learn and grow and get better. So let's talk about that. Fundamental managerial skills. We can identify at least 7 categories of skills that good, sound, efficient, successful managers use on a regular basis in order to do their jobs well. You can see them here with little icons assigned to them by PowerPoint. So, fundamental managerial skills. There are technical skills, interpersonal skills, conceptual skills, diagnostic skills, communication skills, decision-making skills, and time management skills. 7 of them. So just remember, if this was to appear eventually, perhaps, on a quiz coming to a theater near you, hint, hint, right? You should remember, our textbook is really talking about 7 different categories of fundamental managerial skills. And I realize as a student, you may look at this list and say, oh man, do I have to remember all these things? And I would tell you that, well, for the sake of this class, you should try to keep all these 7 of these categories straight in your head. One of the best ways for you to think about this is to look at this broad categories, these 7 categories, and as I describe each of them in more detail in the coming slides, just in a couple of seconds here, think about which one of these do you believe that you kind of do well, you do a good job of those right now, versus the ones where, if you're honest with yourself, you probably could grow a little bit in some of these other areas. Because the wonderful thing about each of these 7 categories of managerial skills is that you can get better if you commit and put yourself on a path to improve in the areas where you know you have some room to grow. So let's talk about each of these areas in a little more detail. When we talk about technical skills, we are talking about skills to understand and accomplish the specific kind of work being done in an organization. If you're going to manage people, you got to know how the job's supposed to be done. And so one of the most difficult things to do is to be a manager over an area where you don't understand how the work's done. That does not bode well for you, and it doesn't mean that you're going to get an enormous amount of respect from the people you're supposed to be managing. One of the examples I've heard of is someone who was appointed to management over a technical repair department, a department full of repair people, and she didn't understand how bicycles were actually repaired. It was a bicycle repair shop, right? How can you manage repair people if you can't show them how to do their job? If you don't understand at a higher level than they do, if you don't have the technical skills to understand the job, that is not a recipe for success. That's an obvious example, right? So one of the keys to managerial success is having the technical skills to understand and accomplish the specific kind of work you're managing. On another side, you also have to have interpersonal skills, which we define as the ability to communicate with, to understand, and to motivate both individuals and groups of individuals. This is one of the most important, perhaps the most important, of the managerial skills. If you're going to be managing people, you have to be able to effectively motivate and move them and mobilize them. And this takes all sorts of different skills to be able to work well with other people. Some of you may realize, hey, you know, I'm not even that experienced at management, but I do that pretty well. I'm already good with people. And some of you may realize, just sort of the way you're wired, maybe I have some room to grow here in terms of interpersonal skills. Again, this is just one of those things that would be helpful for you to do a little bit of self-assessment to really get a better sense of who you are in terms of being a potential manager in your career. Now, as we keep going, other fundamental managerial skills, conceptual skills, your ability to think in the abstract, to think about the big picture and how small decisions or small behaviors or small things that you have your people doing, how they fit into the larger picture, and how does that larger picture then compare to the organizational goals that you're trying to accomplish and achieve. Managers need to be able to think in the larger picture of things in order to serve well over time. Part of this is related, of course, to the second category there, diagnostic skills, the ability to identify a problem and then visualize the most appropriate response to the problem or situation, right? We have often heard it said, for instance, the customer is always right. Is the customer always right? Is the customer always right if the customer is in the middle of verbally abusing one of your employees? What is the appropriate response to that problem in the moment and then after the moment? Which is, of course, a different problem than, let's say, last quarter revenue was down, sales was down. What do you do about that? Well, what's the cause of that problem? And then how do you rectify that? Is it because the competitor came out with a better product? Or is it because the quality of your product has dropped dramatically and people are returning it in droves, right? Depending on how you diagnose the problem will mean that your intended solution may be significantly different depending on how you diagnose the problem, right? Returning to the slide then, the third in this slide at least, fundamental managerial skill, communication skills, your ability to both effectively convey your ideas and information to others and to effectively receive ideas and information from others. Some of us are really, really good at stating our case. And some of us are just not quite that great at listening to other people state their case, right? And vice versa. Again, this is an opportunity, this slide is also an opportunity to sort of look in the mirror and try to be as honest with yourself as you can. Are you really good at some of these areas? And perhaps does one of these areas represent an opportunity for you to invest some time to grow in those areas if you're honest? Let's keep going. The last set of fundamental managerial skills we'll talk about, decision-making skills, the ability to correctly recognize and define problems and opportunities, and then choose the best course of action and execute on it. And of course, the key here in terms of decision-making is the ability to choose the best course of action. This is not easy. This requires practice. And it requires a fair amount of backbone and courage. If we're going to be quite honest, you have to be willing to say, I'm going to make the call. And because I'm not perfect, some of those calls will end up not to be the right call. And I got to have the courage to live with that and to clean up the mess afterwards, to apologize and move forward. Because quite frankly, nobody's going to make the right call every single time. But here's the deal. When it comes to decision making, the one thing that your folks, your troops cannot afford to see is a leader who is indecisive, who can't make a decision. Sometimes you just got to make the decision because you got a deadline and you got to live with the results. Decision making skills. And you see there the last one on this slide, time management skills, the ability to prioritize work, to work efficiently, and to delegate appropriately. Now, let me just pause here and tell you, this is a big one. Time management skills. I personally do not know a single successful executive who does not have a complete, ruthless stranglehold on her or his time schedule. Success means you know how to manage your time. And I realize, even as I'm saying this to you, that for college students, this is one of the very common challenges that we all face, that we're not all great at managing our own time. For instance, are you the type of person who realizes when it comes around to the next big exam, hey, I gotta start studying for this exam. And so you say, okay, Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm gonna spend all day studying for this exam. You start at 9 o'clock in the morning, you get going at 9 o'clock, you got the book open, you got a cup of coffee, right? And then 9:07 hits, ding, you get a message. It's a text message. So you reply back to the text message, you say, I haven't really checked this person's Facebook or Instagram for a little while. I check their Instagram. Hey, I got to post some pictures, myself, selfie, right? Oh, there's a picture of my meal, right? And that, if I'm going to update the gram, then I might as well check TikTok, might as well check Snapchat. And then all of a sudden, it's 10 o'clock and you haven't actually done any studying. So you get back on the horse, 10 o'clock, you're now studying, right? And then a couple other, you want to pet the dog. The dog has to go potty. The dog goes potty. Hey, you know what? I'm really thirsty now. I got to get another cup of, and all of a sudden it's 10:30. You still haven't really done any. Does this sound like you? Or maybe it sounds like, well, not you, between you and me, but that other guy, right? Well, here's the thing. Many students suffer from time management challenges. You are not alone. So let me give you some tip jar advice, as I call it. What's tip jar advice? It's free advice. When you make your first $1 million, come on back and put some money in my tip jar. Okay? It's a musician's term. But here's some tip jar advice on time management. It is a time management technique we call the Pomodoro technique. If any of you speaks Italian, you recognize Pomodoro is an Italian word. In fact, Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. The reason why this is called the tomato technique, the Pomodoro technique, is that the guy who developed it was of Italian-American heritage, and his mother had a plastic kitchen timer that was in the shape of a plastic tomato, one of those magnetic ones hang on a fridge, right? And here's the technique. It's very, very simple. You know you have to study today. So you take out your timer. Nowadays, you don't have to have a tomato-shaped egg timer. You can just have the timer on your smartphone. You set it for 25 minutes, okay? 25. You start the timer, and you commit. You are going to study for 25 minutes straight until you hear the bell on the timer, okay? No potty, no text messaging, no checking social media, no getting anything to eat or drink. Come on, you can do anything for 25 minutes. You're an adult, right? Okay. So even if you're thirsty, 25 minutes. Come on, dude, you can do anything for 25 minutes. You're an adult, okay? I got to go potty. Come on, hold it for 25 minutes. You got to study, okay? Butt doesn't leave the chair until you hear the bell. Ding, at the end of 25 minutes, that's your first Pomodoro. You set the timer for 5 minutes. 25 plus 5. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, you physically get up and get away from your study area. Whether you need to or not, you discipline yourself. You're going to get away from your study area for 5 minutes. This is when you play with the dog, check your text messages, get yourself something to drink or eat or whatever you're going to do, right? Ding, 5 minutes is up. You set up for another 25 minutes and you start studying again. Now, it seems really simple, right? It seems bone simple. Even a child can understand this. But here's the deal. This is a tremendously powerful technique. Easy to understand, but if you can commit to 25-minute blocks, it may, for many people, it revolutionizes their time management. Even in graduate school, when I was earning my master's degree, there was a guy in my cohort who did not have a good handle on time management, and I showed him this technique. It revolutionized his study management time, even in graduate school. And so you need to be aware, if you have challenges with time management, like many students do, this may really help you in your life to get more accomplished and to do it more efficiently and effectively. The Pomodoro time management technique. All right? Now, returning to the slide. What have we said? We are hoping that at the end of this video, you will be able to identify the major skills that managers need to have to be successful, and that you may have the opportunity to consider some areas for personal development and growth along this managerial skill base. There were 7 skills that you saw in this video. 7 skills you'll see in the PowerPoint deck that when you download it from Canvas. You'll see this in the textbook. We'll talk about it. It may appear on a quiz coming to a theater near you. Most importantly, beyond all those things, these could be opportunities for you for real personal growth in the skill set you will need if you aspire to management in your career. I hope that's helpful. We'll see you in the next video.